Welcome back to Sacred Resilience. I'm your host, Christy Lynn Stokin. Thank you for being here. This episode was hard for me to write. November has never been an easy month for me. A lot of not so great things have happened in my life during this time of year, and that makes Thanksgiving complicated at best. Gratitude doesn't always come naturally when old memories surface or when the past still aches in quiet ways. I rewrote this episode more times than I can count because I wanted to be honest, not polished, not perfect, but real, raw. If I was going to talk about finding thankfulness after trauma, I needed to get vulnerable. I wanted to meet you in the middle of the mess because that's where I am too, still somewhere between pain and praise. As we approach Thanksgiving, those who have survived trauma or emotional abuse, the idea of being thankful can feel hollow. You might think, how can I be grateful for a life that hurts so much? And yet, that question is exactly where the work begins. When trauma shatters your sense of safety, even your relationship with God can feel uncertain. You might feel yourself asking, where were you, God? How could you let this happen? Those aren't faithless questions. They're the cry of a heart trying to make sense of why it's broken. And in that ache, God is still present. He doesn't rush your process or ask for a performance of gratitude. He simply waits for you to notice the quiet evidence of His presence, even in the smallest details. Over time, as the fog begins to lift, you might start to see small mercies. A friend who listens without judgment, a sunrise that feels like hope, the realization that you're still here. These are the first sparks of thankfulness, not because everything is perfect, but because something in you survived. And that survival in itself is holy ground. After emotional abuse, our sense of trust in others, in ourselves, and even in God often feels shattered. Gratitude can feel like a language we no longer remember how to speak. But healing invites us to rediscover it slowly, to notice small signs of grace again, the laughter returning to your life, the courage to rest without guilt, the moment you realize you've stopped apologizing for existing. These are seeds of healing, and gratitude is the soil that allows them to grow. It's not about forcing joy. It's about allowing peace to take root in the cracks of what was broken. I used to think that trust was something you either had or you didn't. But after trauma, trust becomes something you rebuild, one fragile layer at a time. You may find yourself angry with God or distant. That's okay. He's not intimidated by your honesty. He already knows the ache that sits in your chest when you try and pray and can't find the words. But here's what I've learned. When we let ourselves be fully honest with Him, something starts to shift. The walls we built for protection begin to soften, and gratitude starts to organically grow. Not because I had it all figured out, but because God didn't leave when I was falling apart. And not because everything worked out, but because God was still good when nothing else was. When I created the guided journal series, I didn't realize how deeply it would intertwine with gratitude. At first, the idea of being thankful while revisiting pain seemed impossible. But what I discovered, and what so many of you have shared, is that when you are recounting these experiences, you notice where hope still flickers. In the moments where you found courage to use your voice, or when you started to believe that you deserved peace. Writing in those pages helped you see yourself differently, not as broken, but as someone who kept going. And that, in itself, is something to be deeply grateful for. Not because everything is restored, but because you realize that you are, It helps you see that what tried to destroy you became the very thing that grew your strength. So if this Thanksgiving feels tender, know that you're not doing it wrong. Your gratitude doesn't have to sound loud or look perfect. It can be quiet, hesitant, or even tearful. Because gratitude after trauma isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about realizing that even when everything changed, he didn't. And maybe this year, that's what we give thanks for. This is Sacred Resilience. Until next time, be gentle with yourself.
And all you ever wanted, only